Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome, everybody. We are back. Another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon. $2.99 this Saturday. I am fired up. We're going to dive into all of it and a surprising line. If you guys have not seen, we're going to dive into it. Help me break it all down. Follow him on Twitter, John Morgan _MMA. John Morgan, what up, pal?
Man, I'm good. We always got a little bit of extra energy in the tank when it's a UFC pay-per-view fight week, right? I mean, me and you love the sport tremendously. We get excited about regional MMA. We get excited about all the major promotions out there. But when it's a UFC pay-per-view week, we know that's a little something extra. And let's add on to the fact that it is part of this run that we've been talking about since the start of the year that we'll continue to talk about. You know, 298 was fantastic on paper. It was fantastic in practice. Now we got 299, which some people are saying better even than UFC 300. And then, of course, it all leads to next month, the big UFC 300 in Vegas. So, yeah, man, I am fired up. It's a UFC fight week. It's a CFFC fight week. They're both down in Florida, so I've got a crazy week ahead, and I'm looking forward to talking about all of it because this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I really wish I was going to be down in Florida with you guys. I got a Grizzlies game that night, and so I wasn't able to answer the call when it came through, but anyhow, we'll touch into that too. And that, by the way, that Atlantic City CFFC card just got announced that I saw just today or whatever. Kevin Peace is now going to be on that card as well. Good Lord.
Yeah, we'll just throw a tease out for that. Get your tickets now for Atlantic City in April. That card is loaded. I know that Rob Haydack is saying, look, maybe this might be the best card we've ever done. And no promoters say that a lot, man. It seems like every week. But, yeah, when you start looking at, like, guys that are going to be on the prelims of that card because it's so loaded from top to bottom, that's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, it is going to be a fun one. Now, let's just dive right in. Actually, before we dive into 299, I want to I don't even really want to cover, the UFC fight night that was in the Apex this weekend. One of the most vicious knockouts you will ever see on the undercard. But go look at it. Flying knee, amazing. But we've never talked about what I'm about to ask you. And the Gamebred Baeknuckle MMA had another show this past weekend down in Miami, and it was headlined by Alan Belcher and Junior Dos Santos, right? Two big names. And it was a bloody mess, as you might assume with bare knuckle MMA. And Junior Dos Santos ends up picking up the TKO victory. If you go see the highlight. It's actually kind of spectacular. Alan Belcher, uses a technical stand-up to stand up. As he's standing up, Sagano just blasts him down and then ends with the ground and pound finish. But this brings me to my bigger point. Or my bigger question, shall I say. What is John Morgan's opinion about bare knuckle MMA?
It's interesting, man. It's really it's vicious. There's no question about it. I mean, visually speaking, the blood, it's just like bare knuckle boxing, right? Where the cuts are the worst part of it. And I mean, visually, you're going to see some nasty cuts. You're going to see some blood. It's going to be there every time. Like, you're just not going to get out of it without seeing it. So from that point of perspective, like, visually speaking, it's a little bit more vicious. I think I kind of feel about it the same way I feel about bare knuckle boxing, which I understand if some people don't like it and they just say, man, it's too much for me. But if what you're really concerned with is fighter safety, that's what you're actually talking about, is whether or not this is safe for fighters or not. I don't think there's any added degree of concern for anybody to be involved. I mean, we talked about it. I think you would be a hypocrite to suggest otherwise, right? Especially if you were one that battled, as I did for years and years, for the acceptance of mixed martial arts, right? Because we always explain to people, people that were comfortable with boxing in the early days that said MMA, boy, this isn't safe. And we had to explain to people, look, man, I know what you're thinking with the gloves, right? You're thinking the big padded gloves, that is safer for the fighter that's involved, but it's not. What it does in boxing is it allows for repetitive head trauma, right? Instead of what it does is it protects the hands. It doesn't protect the head, right? The head is just getting beat over and over and over with these padded fists. And so the MMA glove doesn't provide as much protection. Therefore, you don't take as many of those repetitive punches. And what have we learned about the head trauma? That it's not the one shot, it's the repeated shots over and over and over. So if your argument is fighter safety, then I don't think you really have an argument. Now, There are more hand breaks, as we've seen in bare knuckle boxing. You would expect the same in bare knuckle MMA. We haven't had a ton of these events yet, so we don't have a huge data set. But from a safety perspective, I really don't have concerns. I do understand if people want to say, look, I like combat sports, I like that, but the blood in here is just a little bit too much for me, because I just don't think you get out of these fights very often without suffering some cuts. That bare bone on bare skin, it causes some issues. It does. It does. So if that's your argument, I'll say, okay, fair to you. But, to me, it's another opportunity. It's another place for people to compete. Look at this resurgence of Alan Belcher, man. As you said, two legends. I bet there's a lot of people that are watching this right now or listening and saying, two legends, who is Alan Belcher? And I understand if you're a new generation fan.
I would be personally offended if you say, who is Alan Belcher?
I get it. I would say to you, sir, let me educate you, because he is absolutely a legend of the game. And for you, especially around your parts, even an added legend to the game. But I love Alan Belcher. So I love the fact that you see two legends but the resurgence that he had through bare knuckle boxing, through bare knuckle MMA as well. It's an opportunity for people to continue competing. And, there's precious few opportunities right now for people to compete, right? I mean, we're concerned about where places are going and how many places there are to fight. So to me, this is another opportunity for these athletes who've signed up for this to continue competing. So what about you? Where do you stand on the whole bare knuckle MMA phenomenon?
I agree with you to a point, but I have to look at it from a prism of not a fan or a journalist. I try to look at everything through if I was in the cage with them as a referee. Right. Okay. Now, I don't know if anybody, how closely even you would follow the Gamebred and bare knuckle MMA, because it is in its infancy still.
Right.
But they had a show down on the Gulf Coast in Mississippi. I believe it was maybe November, early December. Right. Alan Belcher actually fought Roy Nelson in the main event. He was victorious. And there was outrage across the board with how the referees handled some of these fights. Gamebred even put out a statement saying the refs had a rough night. We're not going to hold the state of Mississippi and the commission responsible for this. We just hope for essentially, better reffing in the future.
I remember that, because that was a bold statement to make. That's not something you see very often from an organization. I remember that.
And who gets a phone call from the Mississippi State Athletic Commission literally that day? I do. Okay. Now, peek behind the curtain, the Athletic Commission in Mississippi, it was run by somebody else. Now there's a new executive director. He's trying to put a lot of practices that weren't in place now in place. A guy named Randy Phillips. He's doing a tremendous job so far. With that being said, he said, listen, Eric, I just went to the tried and true, refs in the region. We'll just put them on the show. He goes, from here on out, any event that is ever televised in Mississippi, you need to be the lead official on it. I said, you got it, man. I'll be there. Okay. And he goes, so sorry I didn't ask you. I'm really kicking myself. I didn't ask you before, but this is bare knuckle is almost new to me too, right? So I said, hey, no harm, no foul. I said, but here's the problem in it, right? Is you have to look at it and you have to ref it differently. And I told him, I don't necessarily know how much better of a job I would have done. Now, listen, I think I would have done a better job. I'm confident I would have. But if you're reffing bare knuckle in the same aspect of that you're reffing regular MMA, I don't think it applies, right? A fighter or the crowd or the corner or the commission, they just look at it different when it's a bare knuckle hitting a bare head, fist, nose, chin, mouth, whatever. Okay? And so the leash, even though we say the glove doesn't protect the person getting hit, the perception is it does. And so then there's this outrage from the fans, and there's this outrage. And it's not up to me to educate them, but it is up to me to make sure we stay in this confines of what is socially acceptable to a degree. Do you get that?
I do get that, and it was funny because as you were describing it, thinking about it, I really think that's a very nuanced take, and it kind of my question to you, and you kind of said it though, is maybe that's a good thing. Maybe you do have to be overly cautious in the beginning because while it seems okay, and again, I just said it. I mean, it is more bloody. There's no question about it, man. It just is, and I can see how a lot of it, and that makes me think, gosh, I mean, if that does happen. Does that start to impact people's perception of established MMA, of traditional MMA, where, do you start getting a new pushback where people are like, man, have you seen this stuff? It's gone too far. I don't think so. I think the UFC has done a good enough job of establishing the brand and establishing the sport that I can't see people pushing all the way back. But you do wonder if operating with a little bit more caution than maybe even the fighters might want to, or the organization might want to, is really the best scenario for the organization in the long term to make sure it doesn't get a whole bunch of outrage right out of the gate, pushing against it to go away.
Now, in full transparency, I want to say that one of the outrage didn't even have to do with a fighter taking too much punishment. It had to do with Hector Lombard hitting his opponent in the back of the head, then getting the finish only for it retroactively to be taken back, like before the decision, that was a mess. That was a mess. And, as we all know, the referee is the sole arbiter of the fight up until the hand is raised. When the door shuts, up until the hand is raised. Everything in between is only at the referee's sole discretion. The doctor can't even trump him. Okay. Now, I do have to say that, but I think the perception of even an illegal shot or a damaging shot, even in that aspect to the back of the head, is looked at differently, right? And so I say all that is I'm a fan of it because I'm a fan of mixed martial arts, whether it be gloves, no gloves, anything. But I'm always looking at it from a slightly different perspective, especially getting the phone call that I got. Yeah, it was funny. I didn't get just a phone call from that executive director. I got a phone call from another executive director saying, why were you not on that card? That is crazy. That you needed to be on that card. And so it makes me look at it differently. And as the UFC and MMA on the onset had this educational, people needed to be educated to the game. I think it completely reverts back just because of a simple 4 ounces of leather, even though it's not doing all that much different. That's just what I got to say about it.
No, 100% it does. And listen, I think it took a while for bare knuckle boxing as well, right? In the beginning, it was very tough for bare knuckle boxing to gain licensure anywhere, right? I mean, they're doing remote shows out in Montana because it's the only place that'll have them, right? And I think it is going to take a process. And I think there is going to be a little bit of, the shock and when people see the clips. And look, I think it's up to responsible matchmaking. Look, if you're going to look at anything from this past weekend show, I mean, Junior Dos Santos, Alan Belcher was fantastic. I talk about, the opportunities for people to compete. And these are names that you're certainly familiar with. Guys like Chase Sherman, guys like TJ Brown, picking up some victories that have, really been out there and just haven't been able to really catch on at the highest level, but are passionate about competing. They picked up big wins. Jesse Ronson, another guy that's had some kind of funny moments in his career and always been right at the cusp of high level success and not quite, achieving it. So there's opportunities for guys to compete that maybe aren't in the UFC. And so right. I like that. Then you look at things like Charles Bennett being on there, who, my goodness, I mean, if you're a fan of MMA, you're a fan of Charles Bennett, but the losing streak that he's on and where he's been, I mean, look, I'm never one to say like, hey, that guy should go away, that guy should compete anymore. I don't think that's our job. I mean, it's our job potentially to suggest concerns or whatever the case may be. Right. But if you're an organization that is struggling for legitimacy, I think you got to make sure that you're making sure that all of your matchup are as legitimate as possible as well, just so that you don't give the opposition any ammunition to look at you and say, look at what they're doing in here. This is irresponsible. This is unsafe. So it's very important that they hold themselves to the highest standards in the beginning because they're going to get that pushback. It's going to be tough. But I stand behind, if you're looking for fighter safety concerns, I just don't think you can offer too much of them because, again, the bare knuckle boxing proved it as well, and it struggled for it, but now it's gaining mainstream acceptance. It's combat sports. Everybody in it knows what they're signing up for. You know what I mean? There's going to be some trauma. There's no question about it. But I think it's up to the organization to be responsible, and we'll see where it goes from there. And the commission, by the way. I shouldn't just say the organization, the commissions as well.
Right. The one last thing I do want to say on it is, like, if we go back to the one that was in Mississippi where there was a bunch of outrage about it, is And another of the fight that was really in question was Jason Knight, and I forgot who he fought. Let me look. Randy Costa, right?
Yeah.
Jason Knight, and if you're a fan of the UFC, you are a fan of Jason Knight.
Yes,
this
you
guy
are.
is the toughest SOB you will meet. There's videos of him fighting two guys in a bathroom stall on the internet. This guy is down to fight anybody, anytime, anywhere, and he is a guy who is too tough for his own good. Now, I think even though he got finished in, the first round of that fight, a lot of the outrage is that he took too much punishment getting there. And the only question I have is if that glove was on, would he have taken too much punishment in the fans' perspective? And I think I remember going back because I analyzed that fight because they came to me and said, what do you think? What is this, that, and the other? Yes, he did take too many. Even if a fighter doesn't go down, it doesn't mean that he didn't take too many shots. Our job is to protect the safety of the fighter. But with all that being said, I don't think the fans would have had as much of a problem with it if there was 4 ounces of leather on his fist, even though he still took too many punches if there was 4 ounces of leather.
Yeah, it's interesting, and you kind of touched on it, and I wonder here. I know there's a lot of officials out there that are trying to get opportunities. Like yourself, you've made your way up the ranks. I look in Nevada. I watch Mark Smith and Chris Tione start in the amateur ranks here in Nevada and make their way all the way up to UFC staples out there. And there's officials like this everywhere. I do want maybe this is an opportunity for officials, whether it be judges, referees, whatever, to kind of specialize in something because. I think you said it early on, it's you can't officiate all these combat sports the same way. There's different scenarios. Just the one you just laid out is an intriguing one as well. And so I wonder if maybe there's an opportunity for officials to kind of specialize, become like the go-to, the end-all, be-all, the number one in those spots so that, when these things do happen around the country, as it gains licensure, as it gains acceptance, as it gains popularity, maybe they go, hey, that's the guy we got to have in there because he has watched this. He's done more bouts of this particular sport than anything else. He understands all the subtle nuances that take time, that take repetitions because he or she has been in there. I just wonder if maybe that's an opportunity because, look, it is tough. There's not going to be a ton of these events, I don't think, so it'd be hard. And you already know, people that officiate in this don't do it for the money. They do it for the passion. They do it because they love doing it. You're not going to get rich being a mixed martial arts or combat sports official. But I wonder if this might be an opportunity for more people to get reps and maybe some more people to be kind of specialists in that particular field so they really, really understand all the subtleties of that particular discipline.
Kind of like bare knuckle boxing. There are specialist referees like Andrew Glenn out from Florida.
Yep.
He's had all the bare knuckle. He's fabulous bare knuckle referee. But anyways, I just wanted to get your take, and I think we would dove in way more deeper than I thought we were gonna. But
hey, we can. That's what we love this stuff. That's what we do.
Yeah. Well, it's like kind of funny. Like, well, we can't talk about A and B and not leave out C. It's just kind of the way it is.
That's it.
All right, $2.99. This Saturday from is it in Miami? Yes. It's funny. I remember last time we didn't even know the name of the center, the venue because they were switching it over. Now it's the Cageside.
I believe it's Kaseya Center. No, it's Kaseya Center. Kaseya. They told me it's either Kaseya Center or Kaseya. Apologies for Kaseya or Kaseya, who probably spent a lot of money on the naming rights for that opportunity. But I can spell it. I just don't know how I'm saying it right.
There we go. O'Malley Vera main event. O'Malley making his first ever title defense in the Bantamweight division after famously taking it off of Aljamain Sterling, the staple in that division for many years, coming in as a heavy favorite, minus 218 to Marlon Vera's plus 180. Agree with that line?
Yeesh. It's a tough one, man. It really is. Yes, I think I do. I think I do, to be honest with you. I think I do. But Chito's a dog. That's what I think. Like, technically speaking, I think O'Malley's the slicker fighter. He's more accurate. I think maybe that's disrespected Chito a little bit, even though I do say O'Malley is the favorite here. I think that's disrespected Chito. And he does have the result over him.
Yeah, listen, he does have the result over him. Albeit, if you're going to hear O'Malley, it was the injury and, he was downloading the information. He was on his way to start picking up. If you followed O'Malley's career, he's chronicalized why he was going to win that fight. And it was just because, right?
Right.
Which truth be told, everything that he lays out, he is so like analytical when he talked about his loss like that. I'm like, he's right. He's kind of right. So I'm not shocked by that line. I somewhat agree with it. And I'm going to tell you why I agree with it is, and I hope this changes because me and you are we love Marlon Vera. I mean, he is such a good fighter, but he just gives away the first couple rounds. He just gives them away.
Yep.
And now with a very seasoned O'Malley, and even if you look at people that may be a little unorthodox, take Sandhagen in his last loss, it's hard for a very traditional fighter like him moving forward, downloading the information, getting the reads, getting the tells, then implementing and walking you back and beating you on a war of attrition. On an unorthodox fighter like we saw Sandhagen, picked him apart. The fight wasn't almost even competitive. So now you go against O'Malley, who was similar, not as unorthodox, but similar, switching stance, weird angles, throwing punches, setting traps for you. I think it's a tough match for Marlon Vera.
I do, and that's why I say I kind of agree with the line, but I feel when I see a line that wide in a championship matchup, sometimes I feel like it's disrespecting the challenger a little bit. And you're right. I mean, look, say what you will about the result, whether you put credence in their first matchup or not, their first result or not, I understand. What I will say, and you touched on it, completely different fighter at this point, Sean O'Malley. The seasoning that has happened in those last couple of years, man, the maturity that he's had as an athlete, as a fighter, I mean, it's evident. This guy is the real deal now. So I agree with that. And just the tactics that you talk about, Sean O'Malley is so dangerous. So to give away rounds, to give away opportunities to him early is a dangerous thing to do. I think what is so intriguing about this fight, though, is a couple things. Number one, the buildup is going to continue to be fun. Fight week, Chito Vera does not take shit from anybody. Like, you know what I mean? That is just not who he is. He says what's on his mind. He's not putting up with anybody. And look, there's going to be some fun trash talk. And Sean O'Malley, I mean, he's a trash talker, right? But, he's how do I say it without being disrespectful? He's I want to say a little corny sometimes, if I'm being honest. He was a little cheesy with some of it sometimes, whereas Marlon Vera is just like that straight gangster talk. You know what I mean? That's right. Who he is. He's the real deal. He's not creating memes. You know what I mean? He's like, meet me in the back alley. You know what I'm saying? You want to talk like that? Let's go. So that's going to be fun. But that's the buildup. Once it starts in the cage, Marlon Vera is not going away, right? He's not going to be intimidated by the moment. He's not going to be, he's one of those guys that got that dog in him. You know what I'm saying? You may have him hurt, but, until you absolutely finish the job, you can't count him out of it. And I think that's what makes this exciting, because I have no doubt that Sean O'Malley is going to be winning this fight early. But does he put Chito Vera away, or does he have to deal with what Chito brings to the table late? So I think that's what makes this so exciting. Sean O'Malley, probably the better fighter overall, if we're just breaking down skills for skills, right? If we're just doing, the video game power rankings type ranks, he's probably got the more 99s and 98s in there, right? But Chito's right behind him, and he's got that thing that you can't teach, man. He's got that heart that he won't go away, and I think that makes this fun.
In everything I said about agreeing with the line in this, I'm going to put this disclaimer. I am tremendously excited for this fight, right?
Right.
And here's the reason. Your path to beating O'Malley is bullying him.
Mm-hmm.
Chito Vera can do that. Now, usually we only see him do it in a traditional 3-round fight. We only see him traditionally do it in late 2 and 3. If he puts his foot on the gas early, closes that distance, because he is so technical on his feet. He's so high and tight. He can get in, get his shots, and get out. The problem is he doesn't do it early, but if he does, then everything is out the window. Because we saw leg kicks really bother O'Malley in the past. We've seen it in the first fight really bother. If he's closing those distance, throwing leg kicks with punches while marching forward right off the bat, then this fight is so damn intriguing that it goes to, when we were talking about the Ilya Topuria-Volkanovski, I don't know how to call it then if that scenario happens early.
Yeah, and it's Chito has more experience in 5-round fights, but more than that, he's a 5-round fighter, right? He's trying to do it in 3 rounds, but he's a 5-round fighter. He's the guy that's going to be there late. So you're right. If Chito Vera gets his offense going early, oh my goodness, now we're talking about shock right away. Or if he can survive that early barrage, because, I mean, again, and it's just question marks. We haven't seen Sean tested late. We haven't seen Sean tested late in 4 and 5. Not to say that he can't, not to say that, all Chito has to do is drag this past the second round and it's all over. No, we're not saying that, but those are the opportunities, right? You're always looking for those little weaknesses, those little marks of, hey, where might we have some opportunities? Where might we have some advantages? And that's things that we haven't seen. So, this goes, one of two ways, I believe. I mean, Sean O'Malley, I think, is definitely favored early. If he's flowing early and Chito can't deal with it early, could be a short night. Sean O'Malley is dangerous. They can finish anyone. But if Chito can get his own offense going, or if he can survive that early, swarm from O'Malley and he's able to push this thing late, you start to think that maybe he might have some success there and he can take this over in the later rounds. And as you said, kind of be that bully. It's going to be tough to bully Sean early because Sean's got insane levels of self-confidence and self-belief. You know what I mean? Like, he believes he is that guy, and he has shown that he is that guy. So it's going to be tough to rattle him early. But man, if he can, that could change the fight. So I think this is going to be a fun fight. More than anything, I just think this is going to be a fun fight. I think it's going to be one that fans are on their feet. Everybody's rocking in Miami for sure.
And I don't think Marlon Vera's never been finished. He's never been finished as a pro fighter. That's crazy. In all his fights, he's got how many fights does the guy have? He has 31 pro fights. He has never been finished. Okay,
it's amazing.
It's amazing. So I don't think, and so I truly believe he's gonna weather the storm. Whether it's he gets lulled into this tit for tat type fight, right, and gives away 1, 2, and 3. But I'm saying if he gets his offense going early, I don't think he's going to overly bully O'Malley off the bat. I think he possibly 4-5 he can bully him, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But I'm just saying if he puts it in his mind, I'm invading that pocket and I'm getting into close quarters. If that happens, it takes a big portion of O'Malley's offense away. So he can still maybe even win rounds without doing all that much, because O'Malley might not be as effective if he decides to do that in 1 and 2, like he always famously does in 3, 4, and 5.
Dude, you're so right. And then think about this. I hadn't even really thought about this until just now. Can I read you the names of the people that he's lost, Chito Vera, via decision? Because this is incredible. Corey Sandhagen, of course, we remember that one recently. Split decision, but one of the most dynamic, incredible strikers out there. Jose Aldo, legendary striker, insane Muay Thai, nasty. That went to a decision. Controversial even at that one. Song Yadong, who maybe not a legend status, but man, certainly powerful, dangerous, knockout artist, incredible. A smaller known name here, Douglas Silva de Andrade. You'll know him, of course, a little tiny guy, but power. Then we start going to like John Lineker. Hands of stone, one of the most nastiest knockout artists of all time in the lighter weight classes. So not only are we talking about guys that he's gone to decision with, but we're talking about guys that are known for their power, for their striking, for their physicality that they bring to the table. And he's been able to last to the distance with them. I mean, Sean O'Malley, though, all that said, even against those guys, Sean O'Malley is a sniper, man. It's not, he's got that wiry frame. That's it. It's what is it? The Conor McGregor, the timing, the precision beats power, timing beats speed. I mean, O'Malley's got that kind of wiry frame, but he's got that precision. He's got that timing. So, meanwhile, Chito's got that chin. I mean, that's why we're excited about this fight. The initial question kind of it makes me sound that line to me when I look at it almost looks non-competitive, but I get it. Like, Sean O'Malley has the popularity, he has the momentum, he has the skills, he has all the reasons to be that much of a betting favorite. But I don't think it accurately tells how competitive this fight could be and why I think we all, as fight fans, are excited for it.
And you're only as good as your last fight. And even in a split decision, even in a split decision loss, he beat Pedro Munoz, but let's go back to the bigger profile one, in my opinion, is the Corey Sandhagen. And let's be honest, he looked confused a lot in that fight. It was not a split decision victory.
Right.
That was
Right.
that was a horror. Whoever the ref or the judges that gave Marlon Vera 3 rounds in that fight is nuts. You need to go get your eyes checked. So it wasn't a split decision victory. Everybody was shocked by that. But I say you're only as good as your last fight or your second to last fight, as I'm putting in this context, and I think the line is what it is because you had a dynamic, rangy striker in Sandhagen give an uber traditionalist type fighter in Marlon Vera all sorts of troubles over 5 rounds. And it was his inability to pull the trigger when he usually is able to pull the trigger in the later rounds is why I think that line is. That's why I think it comes to a mental check for him. Am I willing early to start getting off? And I'm not going to download this information because like Sandhagen is kind of like O'Malley. It's not downloadable.
Yeah, no, it's not. You're not going to be able to pick that up, man. The tendencies and the creativity, man, it's tough to combat. So I agree with you. I think, a quick start would be beneficial for him, and then again we'll see what's late. Does Sean O'Malley have what it takes to be competitive late? We'll see. We just haven't seen it because nobody's been able to get there with him, so we don't have a lot of experience seeing it. But that's because he's finished the fights early. So it's an intriguing fight for all those reasons. I'm almost. It's funny as we're going back and forth and talking about this. I'm almost picturing one of these fights. It's like back and forth. It's a battle for 5 rounds, and it's Chito that's picking up the late rounds. But Sean O'Malley, what he banked early on, gets him a decision win that people aren't exactly happy about. It doesn't exactly end the feud between those two, and maybe we see it again somewhere down the line. I think we could be looking at that type of fight. Or Sugar Sean O'Malley is capable of putting anybody's lights out, so that could happen as well. Or Chito Vera is that dog, and maybe he pulls out the crazy win once again. I think this is going to be a fun competitive fight. Again, I think it's going to be more competitive than the line indicates, but I understand why the line is sitting where it is.
I'm calling it now. This is going to be an absolute war. People do not associate O'Malley as a guy who has that dog in him.
Right.
You don't hear people say that about him. You say he's a precision striker. He's flashy. He moves. He cuts angles. He does this. If he can avoid this, then he's going to catch you, right? Like Aljamain Sterling. If he can avoid getting taken down. Look no further than the Peter Yan fight to show you O'Malley has the dog in him. So this is it right now. I'm giving you the tell of what this fight is going to be. O'Malley's going to bank a couple early. Marlon Vera is going to start coming on. And O'Malley is going to meet him in the middle like he did Peter Yan. And it's going to be a spectacular fight.
I love it. I can envision it, man. Could we get a 2-2 going into the 5th? Does Vera not even banking those rounds because O'Malley responds and gets tested? Look, maybe this is a perception changer. Maybe this is the one that gets it. If you thought O'Malley wasn't the real deal, or for whatever reason you're one of those doubters, and I get it. People like to, he's a clown with the colored hair and all, whatever. I get it. I understand why people want to doubt him, but man, the wins against Sterling and Yan, those enough in themselves should be enough for you to go, oh, my bad. This guy is the real deal. People
can mistake, he just caught Sterling overextended, right? A lot of people can say that, even though me and you saw the setup. Beautiful, right?
Yeah.
But go back to the Yan fight. Yan hit him hard, took him down. He got up, and then he beat him. It may have been a controversial decision, but nobody is going to say that O'Malley did not gain every single person's respect that night because he showed that he does have that dog in him. That is going to pay huge dividends this Saturday in Miami, Florida, when Chito Vera starts picking up the pace. And I firmly believe that O'Malley, to get to that level, to be a champion, perception or not, you have to have the dog in you. You have to. And he's got it, and he's going to show it.
I'm instituting a new rule. It's called the yeah but rule. And it's if you're breaking down anybody's win streak, I'll give you one yeah but. So if you say he beat Aljamain Sterling, yeah, but he just caught him, man. He overextended, he just caught him. Okay, I'll give you that. He beat Peter Yan. Yeah, but that was controversial. You know what I mean? Like, no, you just had 2 yeah butts in a row. Nope, you only get one. You can pick one or the other. So if you want to say he just caught Aljamain, or if you want to say, oh, I actually scored that for Jan, I'll give you one or the other. You can have one. You can't have two. You can't have two. He's got the win streak. You have to give him credit for it. He's a great champion, and this is a great fight.
And listen, if there's somebody that now he's been on a slide, but if there was somebody that looked untouchable for years, it was Jan, right? And a lot of those people, you know, the hate for Aljamain Sterling came from, you know, the disqualification win, but then also like a lot of perception came as people thought that he was like unwilling to really fight, you know, Jan. And it was like, I'm just going to take him back, grab his back and just hold, right? That was a lot of, and I think a lot of that is the perception, even though I think it's crazy. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. It's beautiful, right? But a lot of the perception is like, he didn't really want to fight these guys. That's not how O'Malley fought Peter Yan. He fought him tooth and nail to a guy that nobody wanted to fight.
And I'll tell you what, man. I mean, you know, Sean O'Malley, I love it. I give him all the credit in the world for recently. Remember, he's like, after this, I want to fight Ilia Topuria. And a lot of people say, whoa. What about Merab Dvalishvili? He's got the winning streak. Oh, you just don't want to fight him because you don't like his style. And what did Sean O'Malley do? He said, oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I thought you guys would want me to fight Ilia Topuria because I thought that would be like a huge, amazing, stylistic fight that you guys wanted to see. That's why I said I want to do that. But if you're saying you want me to fight Merab to prove something, by all means, I will fight Merab Dvalishvili. I have so much respect for that because, as we talked about, Merab is a nightmare matchup for everybody, man. He's so good at what he does. And for Sean O'Malley to say,
5 times.
That's unbelievable.
And,
so for Sean O'Malley,
heard Triple C was an Olympic gold medalist in wrestling.
No, you must have misheard that. There's no way. There's no way a UFC champion was an Olympic gold medalist as well. That's crazy.
Yeah. But
yeah, I love it. I love it. I'm looking forward to this, man. It's going to be a great fight to end. I mean, we may be the energy in that building. Can you imagine what the energy in this building is very likely going to be like as we enter the main event? And if it comes out to be the fight that it sounds like, I mean, you laid it out. I'm kind of seeing the same thing. If it ends up being that kind of fight to cap off the night of this kind of card, man, this may be an all-timer.
Yeah, and go back and listen to Marlon Vera. He was on Joe Rogan podcast maybe, I don't know, a year and a half ago. And he basically talked about, you know, him getting into MMA and how driven he is to be a world champion. And that is culminating Saturday night. I have to believe he's stepping on the gas early. He is one of the most in-shape fighter. You listen to his training regimen. It's just outrageous. I have to believe for him, his whole life is just coming down to this one moment. He knows it. He's a student of the game, and we know he's a dog. He's going to beat you up late. So I do think he's sitting on the gas early, and then I do believe O'Malley is going to change the perception of everybody, and he just ain't this like weirdo, dope smoking, funky color hair, Twitch streaming dude. People are going to say, like, this guy's a dog too, man. I think this fight, now listen, I don't disagree with the line based off of everything we said, past opponents, you're only as good as your last fight, but I think this fight is going to be amazing. I truly, and the more I talk about it, the more I believe it.
I agree, man. I'm 100%. And yeah, man, I love what you touched on with Chito, by the way. I mean, came from absolutely nothing, you know, kind of impoverished upbringing, you know, taking care of his family. His family's had some personal struggles that he's had to deal with, some medical issues that he's dealt with. He's battled all that. You said the training routine. I mean, the dude's like, hey, it's my rest day today, so I'm just going to run 10 miles. I mean, that kind of, sacrifice and that kind of, discipline to do that is incredible. And I agree, man. This is his moment. And look, if Sean O'Malley is, for whatever reason, like just thinking, hey, man, you know, he's kind of downplayed Chito over the years. I think in his heart, Sean O'Malley is a smart kid, man. I think he, whether he publicly addresses it or not, like I totally think he understands what he's in for here. But if for some reason he is looking past it, he is thinking about the next opportunity, he is thinking about the next move, you know, Chito could definitely, you know, sneak up on him. So I love this fight. And you're right, as we sit here and talk about it, I'm even more excited. I'm looking forward to heading down to Florida this week. It's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you're going to go from Tampa, make the drive over?
So I'm going to a short flight. I think it's like a 4-hour drive or something like that. So I'm going to do a short flight instead. So I'm actually going to fly down. I'm going to take a red eye Wednesday, get there Thursday. So I'll be at the press conference in Miami on Thursday. And then from there, I'll go to Tampa, we'll do the fight. CM Punk is back in the building. Happy to
How's
have
it
him
go?
back. Obviously, he's recovering from injury, but he'll be on the mic with me for Friday night in Tampa, Florida State Fairgrounds, if you want to get your tickets. And then Saturday, I'll fly from Tampa to Miami and come back for UFC 299, and then fly home early Sunday morning. So I'm telling you, this week, you look at the schedule, and it's a little crazy as I pull up my iCal and I see like where I got to be and what time I got to be there. It's a little daunting, but I mean, there is nothing I would rather do than to be Cageside for this UFC pay-per-view, to be calling the fights of my man CM Punk that we have in Florida with CFFC as well. It's going to be a fun little stretch of fights. I'm going to be exhausted when I come home on Sunday, but there's nothing I would rather be doing than this.
Awesome. I'm actually jealous. I really wish I could be out there with you Friday, and then I'd just make the drive over and be a fan. But I want to move to the co-main event, and you want to talk about you didn't even look at the line prior. I actually looked at it last week because I was having this conversation with how good Benoit Saint-Denis really is. And then I said, well, let's look at the line. I bet you it's almost close to a pick'em. And then I looked at it. When I looked at it last week, it floored me. And I go, surely the line's going to have to close. Surely it's going to. And it still may. But right now, as it stays right now, Dustin Poirier, or let's say Benoit Saint-Denis, is a minus 170 favorite over Dustin Poirier. Shocking
to me. And I'm looking around at lines that I see that are even higher than that. So I mean, I'm seeing some minus 190s, some minus 220s, some minus 235s, depending on where you're looking around. And that is shocking. And yeah, I mean, look, you and I were getting ready for the show. We were going, run through some quick notes, and you were like, "What do you think about this line, by the way?" And I'm like, I'm like, I don't know. I'm sure it's like a pick 'em. What is it? And I pulled it up, and that was my immediate reaction too. Like, what? What is going on here? That is crazy. Are we forgetting who Dustin Poirier is? But you start going through the track record. You start going through the run that Benoit Saint-Denis is on right now. You start looking at, what he's done prior to his time in the UFC. I mean, the man is a destroyer. This man is a finisher. And so Dustin Poirier, we think of him as a guy that can get into wars, as a guy that can get into battles, as a guy that can be successful in those moments. But every now and then you run into guys that you don't want to be in a battle with, that you don't want to be in a war with. And if there's a guy you don't want to be in a battle with, the guy that you don't want to be in a war with, it might be a special forces guy like Benoit Saint-Denis. He knows the tactics of war. So I'm still a little shocked. I'm still a little shocked by it. To be honest with you, I feel like, man, you can't discount Dustin Poirier. You talk about having that dog. I mean, that dude's got a kennel up inside of him, bro. He's got a whole pack of dogs in him. But, Benoit Saint-Denis looks like that guy. Oh, by the way, Dustin Poirier coming off a fight with Justin Gaethje. People traditionally don't do really well after they fight Justin Gaethje. So, maybe it's all lining up that the line is.
That line has anything? Accurate. That head kick knockout has anything to do with that line?
It has to. It has to some degree, right? It's like, oh, we just saw the guy get finished. Again, it's a stat that people look at, how people do after they face Justin Gaethje, and it's not normally pretty good. Justin Gaethje fights tend to change you as a person. Yeah. So there's something in there. You look at it, okay, 1 and 2 in his last 3 fights for Dustin Poirier, but come on. I mean, it's Gaethje, Chandler, Oliveira. Like, come on. But you could say that, and then you could say, the win streak that Saint-Denis is on. Again, the finishes, he seems to be getting more and more impressive. But I mean, I don't want to take away anything from Saint-Denis. This is a great matchup. He asked for this opportunity, right?
Yeah.
But, you look at the wins over Frivola, Moises, Bonfim, Miranda, Stoltz, all of them great wins. I'm not taking away from them, but they're not wins over Poirier. But you don't get a win over Poirier or his type until you get that opportunity. This is that moment for Saint-Denis. So this is a very intriguing fight. That line initially did shock me, to be honest with you. I still feel like it discounts the heart that Dustin Poirier has, but I see the case, man. I see the case.
Now, Denis first came on my radar at UFC Fight Night, ESPN 48. It was Strickland Magomedov when I was actually in the building in the Apex Center that night. And I remember just thinking, like, who is this guy? Right? That was when he first really came on my radar. And then, his last fight, the Matt Frivola head kick knockout, people don't roll through Frivola like that. They don't. And he did. And I just was like, holy smokes. But I have to say this. How much freaking respect do you have for Dustin Poirier to even take this fight? This is insanity for him to take this fight. And this is how you know he's a fighter's fighter. He says, somebody call me out? All right. You want me to step in and, almost save the card? All right.
He's the man. There's a reason why Dustin Poirier is, I'll just universally loved. I don't know if I've ever met somebody that's like, I don't like that Dustin Poirier guy as a fighter or as a human being, right? He's just, as you said, a fighter's fighter. He's an incredible representation of the sport, an incredible human being. And you're right, because I don't think he really has a ton to gain in this. Obviously, the financial perspective of it. Yeah, but from a reputational standpoint, from a legacy standpoint, this fight does nothing for him whatsoever. It's more money for his family, and this is what he loves to do. You know what I mean? Not only is it how he puts food on the table, it's what he loves to do. And so, but it says a lot of credit for him and why he's so loved as a fighter. Because it'd be really easy, and we hear it a lot, right? We hear it a whole lot. It'd be real easy for Dustin Poirier to say, "Hey, no, much respect to the new kid, but come on, you haven't earned your way to this level yet. I've been here, I've been in the UFC for 13 years now. Like it's a little too soon for you, young man. Go get some other wins, and then we can talk." But that's not who Dustin Poirier is. He's like, "Hey, man, just talk to UFC and make sure the money's right, and we can go do this tonight." And that's what he's doing, man. I love it.
My hot sauce on the press conference table.
I get to put my hot sauce on the dais. That's all that matters. And by the way, if you haven't tried Dustin Poirier's hot sauce, it is good. It's really, really good. It's a staple of the Morgan household. I'm going to be with you.
I have not tried it. I don't got the Morgan hookup with the pallets coming to my house like you do.
Oh. Yeah, we just load it in the back. Give it a shot, man. Order it. It stuff's good. Dustin Poirier's hot sauce is solid.
Yeah. I almost liken and the respect I have for Poirier, I would almost liken Saint-Denis, kind of like an Umar Nurmagomedov, how nobody above him wants to really fight him, right? And for what's he ranked? 11th or it's crazy. 12th. He's 12th in the UFC. And for him to take that jump, or for Poirier to take that perceived backslide to fight a 12th ranked fighter, dude, I don't think it could say more about somebody than to say, listen, I almost think it's Dustin Poirier saying, I believe in this guy too, so I'm going to be the one to give him the shot.
It's how the sport has to work. You know what I mean? I think Dustin Poirier gets the sport. Like, you need those opportunities. You got to give people chances to move up the ranks. And I understand you work your ass off to get in those ranks. And so it's easy to be like, no. I had to do all this to get here. I'm not giving that opportunity. But just put yourself in the other position. Remember when you were that guy. Remember when you were the one that was outside the rankings, that was number 14, that was number 12, being like, look, man, I know my skills are as good as those guys at the top. I work my tail off. I'm putting in the work. I just need that chance. And you were waiting for somebody to give you that chance. And Dustin Poirier is that guy, man, that's willing to do this. I think he understands that's what the sport needs to survive. It needs to move forward. And again, it just goes to show you why the organization has respect for him, why the fans have respect for him, and why, he is absolutely a legend of the game.
Now, all of Saint-Denis' wins have come via stoppage. His sole loss, I think it was his octagon debut. Was it his octagon debut?
It was, yeah. His first decision against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos.
Okay, it was his octagon debut 5 or 6 fights ago. He got taken to a decision and lost. So, in a 3-round fight, I guess the game plan is take him to a decision.
Yeah. That's what you got to do, right? You got to look. The onslaught's coming. This dude he's coming for the knockout. This is a finisher, right? He's coming swinging at you. He's got grappling skills as well.
That is his nickname, the God of War.
Come on, you love it, man. This dude is violence, and so he's violence personified. But hey, Dustin Poirier, that man has been in some violent fights over the years. You know what I mean? You're gonna bring the battle at him. He's gonna brush the hair back. He's gonna tug up on the shorts, and he's going to be ready to go. You know what I mean? So, yeah, this is, exactly. You know what he's doing? Like, come on, man, let's go. Again, this is another fight that if you're Dustin Poirier, I think you want to survive that early onslaught, and you want to try to test him late. But, can you survive? That's the thing about, it's real easy to go into a fight and say, look, here's what we got to do. We got to get through these early moments. And then the later it goes, the better it is for us. But sometimes that's really hard to implement because getting through the early rounds doesn't mean you just shell up and you just allow the other guy to unleash. And I think that's what happens sometimes is, guys are playing for later rounds. So they're a little too conservative. They're a little too defensive and they get caught along the way because they're not really countering. They're not really giving their opponent anything to think about. Now, I don't think Dustin Poirier will fall victim to that, but I just want people to understand the mentality of saying, well, if I'm just trying to survive because the later rounds help me and the later rounds favor me, you still got to be active in those early rounds to get to those or you'll cost yourself that opportunity.
This is how stacked this card is. We don't even going to get time to get to the Pedro Munoz fight or the Gamrot versus Dos Anjos fight or the Caitlin Macy Barber fight or the Curtis Blades Jalton Almeida fight or the Peter Yan Song Yudong fight or the Gilbert Burns Jack De La Mandalea fight. We don't have time to get to those.
This is crazy.
What we do have time to get to.
I knew it was coming. I knew it had to be coming.
MVP, Michael, Venom, Page, Kevin Holland. Perfect first opponent for him. Perfect.
Yeah. We just got to take the hat off and give a little salute to the UFC matchmakers, right? Because I thought when this fight was announced, well done. Not only well done in bringing over Michael Venom Page, MVP, who is, if you haven't been watching his Bellator run, I get it. For some people, if you're not a super hardcore fan, maybe UFC is as far as your reach can go. And I understand that. But man, I feel like even if you aren't a Bellator fan, even if you haven't really been following their organization, you had to have seen the highlights. I mean, this dude is a highlight machine.
He cracked Cyborg's skull.
That's one of the scariest injuries we've ever seen in MMA, right? I mean, a dented skull. I mean, come on. It's unbelievable. This dude, he's been like Sports Center top 10, and he's style, he's flash, right? I mean, he talks the talk. He goes and puts on shows. He's one of these guys that creates those iconic moments, not just gets the victory, but, maybe a little bit of like Israel Adesanya in him, right? Where it's not only do I got to get the finish, but then when I got to get the finish, then I got to strike the right move. I got to make the right pop culture reference. I got to do, it's just the whole package. The man is a showman. And to see him come to the UFC is exciting. I mean, he's a talented athlete, but to see this matchup against Kevin Holland, unbelievable, fun stuff. I love the matchmaking here. I love this fight. I love where it is on the card. I mean, it feels like there's going to be something highlight reel worthy in here one way or another.
Listen, this guy deserves to be in the UFC. If you don't like him, you don't know him, you're going to love him. Kevin Holland is going to be a guy who's going to come and fight him. And I keep on saying this is perfect matchmaking. And it's a winnable fight for Kevin Holland, too. I mean, I don't want to discredit that. It is a very 100%. Winnable fight. If he closes the distance, he solves some sort of riddle, he can get takedowns. Very hard to keep Michael Venom Page down, though. He is so good at, if he gets taken down, pushing the head down, and if he can't get up, he ain't gonna. Once his arm, that 99-inch reach he's got, is just pushing that head down, it's very hard for you to advance on him if you do take him down. And he's very good at getting up. I'm just excited, for him to be in the UFC. I think he's going to be a fan favorite. I think he's going to start doing all the wacky stuff. And perfect showcase, Miami, Florida, pay-per-view, featured fight on the main card. I mean, I don't know what else there is to say. I mean, because if you don't, he's hard to describe. It's like what I'm going to say is like, hey, if you're going to, here's an MVP fight. Like, I'm going to describe an MVP fight. Like, that's almost impossible to describe the way the guy fights.
Yeah, the style, movement. Yeah, it is. It's different. I mean, he has one of the most unique striking styles, fighting styles, all out there. So I love this. And here's what I think is interesting, because to me, I honestly believe, and this is anybody fighting Michael Page, to be honest with you, but Kevin Holland included, your best path to victory is like probably grapple with the guy. Like, I don't think you necessarily want to strike them. Like, your best path to victory is let's put the guy on the fence, let's slow him down there. We'll get the occasional takedown. As you said, he's a little bit more squirrely and wiry and escapability than most people give him credit for. But I don't think you go into a fight saying, you know what we do? Let's set up a kickboxing range and let's see who has the better striking. You know what I mean? That's just not it. But when we think about Kevin Holland, you know, I mean, first of all, Kevin Holland, you know, is going to be chatting all during fight week. You know, the press conference, there's going to be some fun there. And Michael Venom Page is quick-witted, man. He'll come right back at you. You know what I mean? He's not
in that English accent.
Oh, with the English accent as well. And I don't think MVP is like a huge, like, just trash talker, so to speak, but he is quick-witted. I mean, he will cut you down if you come at him, that's for sure. And you know Kevin Holland's going to come in. So the war of words is going to be amazing. And then the war of words, and then it's going to happen in the fight as well, right? Like, MVP, he'll point at you, he'll laugh at you, he'll showboat for you, right? Kevin Holland will do all the same things, right? He's going to showboat, he's going to point at you, he's going to laugh, he's going to talk trash to you. So I just think this has the real possibility of just being absolute chaos, but in the most exciting, entertaining way. I love the matchmaking. And I'll go back to Kevin Holland's best path is probably through grappling, but Kevin Holland loves to strike and loves to put on shows and loves to be entertaining. And so if it's boring, he might not want to do that. So if he feels that it's boring, he might not want to do that. So, man, I love this. I love this. And, you know, maybe it won't get as much attention pre-fight as it should just because the card is so loaded. The title fight is much anticipated. Dustin Poirier is a legend. I mean, you named all the names that are on there, but Holland MVP could be one that we're absolutely talking about on Monday morning.
It's either we're going to be talking about it because it was an amazing fight and Kevin Holland exceeded every expectation. Maybe not mine or yours, but he exceeded every expectation. Or that people now are, who the hell is this MVP guy and where has he been? And I'm going to say, you know what? Back in 2016, I watched him live open up the main card, Bellator's first ever pay-per-view when I was sitting Cageside. Do you remember that was the Rampage versus King Mo?
Yeah, absolutely.
He opened up the main card. And I was like, who the hell is this guy? And I've been a fan ever since because I was like, what he's doing defies logic in MMA. At first you're like, man, who does this guy think he is doing all this crazy stuff? And then you're like, wait, everything he's throwing is landing. Why he's
incredible. And you know what's interesting is it's kind of because if you've been watching Bellator, you've been following Bellator, like you are an MVP fan, you've enjoyed watching him fight. But what was the discussion all along? It was like, hey man, Bellator's slow playing this guy a little bit. You know, they need to get him some real tests early. But man, there's a benefit sometimes to slow playing a little bit and to letting guys really develop. And that's what we're seeing at this point. I mean, MVP at this point is a full-fledged mixed martial artist with an incredible record of 21-2. He's making his way into the UFC. If you're a hardcore fan, you're super excited about this matchup. If you're new, you're going to love the guy when you see him. You're going to be intrigued by what you see, whether it be on the mic, or whether it be in the cage. And so, look, I know that sometimes, you know, I look at like this past weekend, you know, Muhammad Mokaev, everybody's like, man, you know, he's talking about fighting for a title already. I know he didn't slow play his amateur career. He had an extended amateur career, but sometimes I feel like we're in a tendency to rush people to the top. MVP did kind of take that slow path to the top, and maybe he didn't get the big test early in his career, but it allowed him to develop as a phenomenal mixed martial artist. And now I think the anticipation for this is much higher than it would have been if he came to the UFC at, say, like 10-0 or 11-0 or something like that. You would feel he hadn't been tested. I mean, this is a fun fight.
And when I was doing my research on MVP a little bit ago, I went back in one of his early Bellator fights. He fought Noshan Burrell.
Right. Yep.
I didn't know that. Right. And, you know, he fought in the UFC. I've reffed him in CFFC. That was the Moth fight.
That's right. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. The largest moth ever recorded in human history in the United States was on UFC Fight Pass and CFFC. It was the most, and it was bizarre. That thing came straight from like the Amazon. It caught some wind up from the Amazon.
I've never had to call a timeout to a mixed martial arts contest because of a enormously freaky bug is in the cage, like I had to do in that fight.
It's what, at first everybody's like, oh, just avoid it. You're like, no, this thing might attack somebody. We got to identify what this thing is. This thing might be lethal.
Are they pumping steroids in Moth in Mississippi? What are they doing? Is there some biotech lab around there we should know about that this thing like escaped from?
The birth of like a Spider-Man villain that night or something. You know what I mean? It was crazy.
Well, man, it's been a really fun episode. We talked about our takes on bare knuckle MMA and then obviously 299. And just the list that I had to go through that we didn't get time to talk about is
unbelievable.
unbelievable. $299 Miami, Florida this week. We already know what you're going to be this weekend. Give us a refresher course again, though.
Yeah, listen, man. UFC 299 I'm looking forward to, but CFFC 130 in Tampa on Friday night. If you can be there at the Florida State Fairgrounds, do it. If you can watch on UFC Fight Pass, do it. As I said, CM Punk is back in the booth with me. Matt Matzer and Dorje, our flyweight champion, undefeated, training at American Top Team, living in the dorms there at Horiguchi Hall. Man, he looks very much ready for the UFC, but he's fighting a guy in Israel Galvan who just came off a big upset over Max Quinones. He's a solid wrestler. He's a guy that's like the always the underdog, always counted out. He's counted out here, and he's like, I'm about to come F this dude's whole dream up. You know what I mean? That's what I'm about to take it away from. So a great main event, and then just a lot of great talent down in the Florida area that's been developing. Hugh Pulley versus Blaine Richards, Max Quinones, Jim Natividad. It's a fun card. I mean, if you haven't watched CFFC before, trust me, the matchmakers do a phenomenal job. The production team does a great job. Hopefully I do a great job on the mic. It's a fun product. So check it out in the building if you can. If not, watch it on UFC Fight Pass. And man, back to back. I mean, I'm telling you, Eric, there's nothing I could not, describe a dream weekend better for me than Friday night. I get to be on the mic. Saturday night, I get to be Cageside at a UFC pay-per-view. I mean, that's it for me, man. I'm pumped.
Yeah, I really wish I could be there. Like I said, I got called by the Florida Athletic Commission being on the card there, and because a lot of the other guys, like other people that fly in, are working UFC that next night. They don't want to double them up,
Right.
too far away. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to do it because I will be watching CFFC. I'll have it on in my locker room while the Memphis Grizzlies are playing, and so every time I come into my locker room, I'll be able to see that pretty face with CM Punk. But that's what I got going on this weekend as well. So another fun episode. Check us back next Monday as we talk about, is it and still or and new? Plus, do we have a new budding star in Benoit Saint-Denis? Or is the old dog going to do the old dog things and Dustin Poirier is going to prove why he's still the big dog in the UFC? But for all that, check us out next week and enjoy the fights.